Welcome to this workshop on using some free BIM tools for managing your building information modeling projects. My name is Pat Slattery. I'm the Managing Director of ArcDocs. On any BIM project, there are multiple software applications required depending on your role on the project. There are design applications such as Revit and ArchiCAD. There are review applications like Navisworks, Solibri. There are 4D planning tools like Synchro and Navisworks. Costing tools like CostX. All of these tools can be expensive and difficult to learn. Today, we're going to focus on 3 free tools, which are really important and useful tools for any BIM project. The first one of these is the NBS Toolkit. The second is the Autodesk Design Review. And the third one is the Autodesk Viewer. The NBS Toolkit is a free project management tool produced by the NBS in the UK. They're a REBA company. It allows you to define clearly who is involved in a project, what are they doing, and when are they responsible for doing it. Okay, you create your tasks, you create deliverables for the project, and you assign those to participants to the project. It helps to ensure and manage that the participants are producing information at the right time and in the right way on the project. The output from the NBS Toolkit is a digital plan of work, which allows for better and more consistent decision making, better collaboration, and a clear allocation of responsibility for delivering the tasks and the requirements for the project. It's a free online application. There's a link on the bottom of this page, toolkit.nbs.com. You need to register to create a free account, and we'll do an exercise in this as part of this workshop. The second application we're looking at is Autodesk Design Review. This is a free desktop application from Autodesk. It allows you to bring in files from different sources, to view them, mark them up, print and track changes. It allows you to review both 2D and 3D model files without needing access to the original software application. It can import files from different sources. Its native file source is DWFX, and most of the main CAD and BIM applications will export to a DWFX file. There's a link at the bottom of the page to the Autodesk website, which allows you to download and install the Autodesk Design Review application. We will be using the application as part of this workshop, so each person needs to download and install that application. The Autodesk Viewer is an online cloud-based tool that allows you to share and review models and drawings online. You can make and share comments on the model. And again, this is a free application. There's a link there, viewer.autodesk.com. You do need to create an account. You can sign up for free. If you already have an Autodesk account, you can log in using your existing Autodesk account. I have shared some files, some data sets with you that we will use as part of these exercises. There are 3 folders: compare, DWFX model, and export links. Each person will need to have access to those files to take part in the exercises. There's a link on that page there to download the files from Dropbox if you don't already have them. So in the web browser, I'm going to go to the NBS Toolkit. So NBS Toolkit, I've searched for that already. So I've just done a Google search for the NBS Toolkit. Alternatively, you can use the link that's included in the presentation. And this will take you to the opening page of the NBS Toolkit online application. If you don't have an account already, you will need to use the sign in register button to sign in. So if you don't have an NBS account, click on the sign up button and create an account. It's free. Once you have an account, put in your email address that you created the account with, a password that you've created as part of your login, and sign in to the application. Once you've signed in, you'll see this home screen. There are a number of tabs at the top for your projects. There is some help under content. You can search and download the Uniclass classification tables. You can search all of the definitions that are included, and you can look at product data templates from here. There's also a support page with some additional help, links to papers, levels of definition information, for example, in the technical support area that you can use. So once you're on the home screen, we need to create a project. So we have a button here to create a project. At the moment, we don't have any projects. You'll see down in the main part of the screen, it tells me you currently have no projects available to open. So I'm going to create a new project. So when you create a project, you have to give it a unique reference number. So each project should have its own number. I'm going to give this project a number TCD, and the title, I'll just call it TCD PM. This is specific to every project. You can give a description of the works. What are the works going to be? A new office building. And we can then choose from a number of options in terms of templates. So we can base it on a template to start the project. And there are a number of templates provided as part of the login. The first one is the REBA plan of work, which is the one we're going to use. But you can also use a project example, and they give you one secondary school case study that you can open and review. And you can also use an existing project. So once you've created a setup for one project, you can save that and then use that for your other projects. You can browse to those projects and use that as the starting template for your new project. So I'm going to use the NBS or the REBA plan of work, and I'm going to say create now. So this now creates my project. I can see my project is here. And I have a number of options. I can start adding some more information to it. So I can add a location. So I can edit the project details to add a location. In this case, I can put in a postcode, G18. I'm putting the location of my office. And it should find it. It does find it. It shows a marker on there. You can put whatever location in you want on your project. We can start adding some more information. What is the function of the project? In this case, I'm going to say it's a new office building. So I'm going to scroll down this list. I think it's 320. It's an office. So I'm going to say it's offices. What type of work is it? It's a new build project. What's the procurement method? It's a traditional contract. What's its functional unit? I'll say 10,000 square meters. So it's fairly big. Change that to meters squared. What's its expected life? I'll say 30 years. Description of the work. We can put more details in there if we want to describe. You get 990 characters to use to give a description of what the work is. And then what units are you going to use? What's the basic unit of measurement for area? Well, that's going to be square meters. For linear units, it's going to be meters or millimeters, and for volume, it's going to be cubic meters. So once you're happy with the settings, you can carry on to save the project. You can also add an image. So if you want to add an image, you can add an image from the folder that I shared with you for the project, and save your changes. So the project is now set up. If I go to my projects and browse all projects, you'll see my project now appears on this list. To go back into the project, I will pick on the project itself. Okay. So I've set up the details. The next thing I need to do is to add participants to the project. This is where we say which organizations are involved in this project. Well, I'm going to start and create some new participants. So I pick on the participants button and I can start adding some organizations. So I'm going to add Trinity College as a participant. I'm going to add ArcDocs themselves as a participant to the project. I'm going to add an architect. I'm just calling them AAA architects, just as random names really. We'll add a contractor. I'm going to call them BIG contractor. Limited. And I'll add a structural engineer. I'll call it. Structural engineer. So I've created a number of organizations. So for your particular project, you need to go through and add the organizations that are involved. At this point, I can invite the users by email. So I can type in an email. And invite that person to participate in this project. Okay. I'm not going to send any invitations at this point, but you would do that as part of your project. So we've now set the participants and we can add additional participants to the project as we go through. So I'm going to go back to the work stages, clicking on the link at the top here. And I can see there are a number of different work stages available to me. These are the REBA work stages. So from stage 0 to stage 7. Currently it's at strategy. I'm going to go to the definition stage. Okay. For the purposes of this exercise, you would actually start at the beginning and work your way through the different stages. But for the purposes of this, we're just going to jump to stage 3 and start adding some details for this particular stage of the project. So we can add a stage deadline. When does this stage have to be complete? When is the construction going to start? When is the construction going to end? Next year or next month? How long is it going to take? What's its cost? Euros. In euros. What assessment rating are we looking for? We're looking for BREEAM Excellent. And we can add some notes to this stage as well. Okay. I can set this also to be the current stage. So I'm saying stage 3 is the current stage of this project. Okay. Now we defined the participants to the project, but we haven't assigned roles to those participants yet. So the next thing we need to do for this stage of the project is to assign organizations to the roles in the project. So for the architect, I'm going to assign the architectural company that I created, building services engineer. I didn't create one. The civil engineer, I'll put the structural engineer in from there. The client, I'll put in Trinity College. Construction lead, I'll put the contractor. Cost consultant, don't really want to be, but it could be in there. So you will add the organizations to each of the roles required for this project stage. And when you start a project, you get a list, a sort of a short list of roles, but you can add additional roles at this stage. So if I add a role and click on the drop-down list, you'll see there's a much longer list of roles that can be added to the project. Okay. So if I wanted to add a highways consultant, I can add that role to the project. That will appear in my list here, and maybe I can say, well, it's actually the structural engineer who's doing that role on the project. When I go to add role, if the role that you require specifically for your project is not in that list, you can create a custom role. So maybe this could be the project information manager. Add that role. The project information manager has now been added to the project, and I will take on that role. So these are the roles in the project. So you've now assigned these for this stage. The reason you assign the roles per stage is because the roles can change ownership at different stages of the project. You may have a different client, you may have a different civil engineer, you may have a different architect for different stages of the project, and it allows you to change as you develop through the project. Okay. So the next thing I want to look at are tasks. So tasks are stage specific. So what we're looking at here in this list are the list of tasks for this stage of the project. These tasks are all based on the UK's plain language questions. So the plain language questions developed a simple English description of what needs to be done. Okay, so looking at the first one at this stage, the client must have the opportunity to comment as the proposals develop and progress. That's reacting to a plain language question that says, has the developed design been reviewed? And the EIR is design proposals. So the employer's information requirement is for design proposals. So each one of these tasks should be completed during this stage of the project, and there is an organization responsible for that particular task. So depending on what your role on the project, if I go down to the architect, some of the tasks under the architect, there's prepare an architectural developed design, there's liaise with the planning authorities, there's submit a planning application, there's undertake third-party consultations. Those are all tasks assigned to the architect. Each one of those, if I open those out or expand it out, again is responding to a plain language question. Has the team had input into the developed design, and does it meet the project requirements? And this is part of the developed design employer's requirement. So this is a standard list of tasks which you can add to this. So if there's a task that is not included in here, you can add a new task. The tasks are all numbered, so at this stage they all start with a 3. 0, 1, 1. I can put in a new class. New images. I'll give it the responsibility to the client, Trinity College, and I can put some notes and plain language questions against it if I want to. I'm just going to save that changes. You'll see that task has gone in there. It's the responsibility of Trinity College. So you can add more tasks. You can even delete tasks out. So if you're not looking for Trinity College to sign off on the developed design, I'm not sure why you would, or if you don't want them to comment on updated, I can come in here. I can change the task to something else. Okay. Or I can even in here click on the little X here to delete that task out of the project. It's permanently deleted from the project. I'm not going to do that. I'll just leave it there and cancel out of that exercise. So that is tasks. So for each stage of the project, there's a list of tasks defined, and a responsible organization assigned to each task. We also have deliverables. So deliverables are what we are actually providing in this project. In this example, there are deliverables already added in as an example as to what they could look like. Each deliverable has a uniclass classification code. It has its uniclass description. And you'll see that responsibility has been assigned for some of these, but not all. Okay, some of the responsibility of the architects, some of the responsibility of the engineers. Okay. Where the company or the organization has been assigned the role, it will give you the name of the organization. Where it hasn't, you see here structural engineer. So in here, I haven't assigned a role to the structural engineer. So if I go back to my roles and go to structural engineer down here at the bottom, assign that to the structural engineer organization, and then go back to my deliverables, you'll see that this structural engineering organization has been assigned to those deliverables. Each deliverable has a level of detail. The level of detail is how graphically accurate or how graphically correct the information needs to be in the model. And it gives you visual indications of what that should look like. So in terms of the plan views, maybe section view, a 3D view, and so what that element of the work should look like in the model at this stage of the project at LOD 3. It also, for this stage, we have LOI 3. So if I look at the level of information required, there's a small amount of information required on the geotechnical design, settlement criteria, loads applied to foundations. Okay. If you want, you can view the full definition of the concrete foundations. So this will take you to the full details for that element. So you can see at each of the project stages or each of the levels of detail what you would expect. So at LOD 2, simple information. LOD 3, not a lot more information, but you do start to get model information. LOD 4, you start to get rebar, more setting out dimensions, more information in the project. And LOD 5, full information, that's sort of construction information for that element of the works. We can also look at the LOI, the level of information. And again, it shows you for each of the different LOIs, so LOI 2, LOI 3, and LOI 4. So as you move, you'll see that as you move through the different LOIs, there's additional information required. So you build up the level of information required for each deliverable as you work through the project. LOI 6 is essentially COBE, Construction Operations Information Exchange, or information that's required for the operations and maintenance of that part of the building, or that object or system. You can also, for each element, get a product data template. So at the top of this sheet, you see there's a link here to a product data template. This will download an Excel file. I'll just open that Excel file. So this is the product data sheet exported from the NBS Toolkit. It has 3 tabs. The first of those tabs is just a general introduction and information about the NBS and this sheet. The second tab is an overview. It's already filled in with the name, the description, the uniclass code for this particular system. What needs to be completed here is the manufacturer's details, manufacturer's address, website, email. And on the third tab, what needs to be filled here is the actual product information. So product 1 might be a beam. As an example, description, precast ground beam. And then as you work your way across this series of columns, you will add in additional information. So at the top of each column, you'll see a number. the number relates to the LOI. So at LOI 2, you just need a description. At LOI 3, there's just, for this particular element, there's just 3 bits of information required: technical design, settlement criteria, and loads. At LOI 4, there's additional information required: tolerances for precast components, etc. Are required. As we move across through the columns, we'll see it changes the number at the top to 6. So we're now into handover information, and there's more information to be completed. So each one of these columns should be completed with information about this particular element. And the easiest way to gather this information together is to get the manufacturer or the supplier of the particular components to complete these product data sheets. In the model, the parameters can be there. So there can be a parameter for duration or a parameter for expected life. But the value that goes in there, whether that is 5 years or whatever that goes in that column, can be filled in an Excel file by the supplier, who doesn't have to do any modeling, doesn't have to go into the model. He just provides you the data in a product data sheet, and then this information can then be pulled back into the model in order to complete the as-built model for handover. Going back into the NBS Toolkit and into my project, I'll just close that particular object. So we now have our list of elements for the project. They have 3 sets of digits. Okay. So where escalation and filling systems could be expanded out with further detail, I'll see a little menu here which allows me to go into more detail. So maybe it's an earthworks filling system or a filling system around trees, or maybe I have both of those. I can say OK, and this will add those as additional definitions and will inherit the settings for the previous project. Okay. Again, there's nobody decided for that, so we need to assign responsibility for these tasks. If I edit task, I say it's now it's the civil engineer's responsibility. I can save the changes. This one here, edit the task, civil engineer is responsible. And I'll save my changes. So there's a standard list of deliverables here, but we may need to add more deliverables to the project. So we do that using the Add Deliverables tab or button. We can then add deliverables by searching from them. So say I want to add a fan coil unit. I can do a search. So it'll find a fan coil. If I want to add, if I just want to see systems, I can click on systems. If I just want to see products, I can click on products in the menu on the left here. So I'm going to put in a fan coil air conditioning system. Next step will be to decide who's responsible for this deliverable. It'll be the building services engineer. I can add some notes to it. I can assign a level of detail to this and a level of information. So at this point it shows me what the level of information would be, and also on the level of information tab I can see what information will be required at the different stages. I can decide that for the fan coil unit, well, for this stage of the project, actually I need more information or I need more detail. So I could push the LOD up to 4, and I could push the LOI up or even push the LOI down and say, well, I don't need so much information. I need a little bit more detail, but I don't need more information for this particular element. So the default is that the LOD and the LOI will match the stage. So when you add a deliverable at a particular stage, it defaults to having a LOD 3 and LOI 3 for stage 3, but you can change those for any particular deliverable up or down. Once you're happy with that settings, you can add that deliverable and it has appeared there on that list. Okay. So you build up a list of everything that's required in the project, who's responsible for it, what level of detail you required, and what level of information is required about that particular element of the project. Once you've completed adding your deliverables for any particular project stage, you can move on to the next stage of the project. So if I wanted to now move on to stage 4, having completed stage 3, I'll go to stage 4. It will ask me if I want to copy all the deliverables from stage 3. In this case, I'll say yes, I want to copy all the deliverables for stage 3. Copy those. And by default, it will up the LOD and LOI to 4 and 4 for each element of the project. Again, because I've moved on to stage 4, you'll see that it's gone back to not having an organization associated with the responsibility. So again, for this stage, I need to assign the roles for this particular stage. Now I can copy these roles from the previous stage again. So I can say copy from stage 3, copy. So these roles automatically come in here. If one of these was to change, say there was a different contractor, you can come into this list and you can decide on a different contractor. If somebody is not required, I can take them out of the project. If there are additional roles required, I can then go and add the additional roles in for this stage of the project. Okay. If I go back to my overview, this is the overview for this stage. Which again shows the overview of the project. It shows me how many deliverables there are for this stage of the project. It shows the average level of detail and level of information. It shows me there are 53 tasks, and it shows me who the project team are. And I can add some, details around this particular stage of the project. When is it to start? When is it to end? Etc. I just pick some random dates to put in here. The cost has gone up. It's now 15 million. It's going to be BREEAM outstanding. Okay. Again, I could have copied the details from stage 3. Again, I can now make this the current stage of the project. I can look at the roles which have now been assigned, and again we can look at the tasks. And we can do a similar exercise with the tasks. There are new tasks now for stage 4. So these tasks again are assigned to a responsible party who needs to complete these tasks for this stage of the project. Similarly to stage 3, we can delete tasks, we can add tasks, we can edit tasks. But the default list are the response, as we said, to the UK's plain language questions. We can also look at the deliverables for this stage. So we've copied the deliverables across from the previous stage, which may be fine, but it may be that we need to add more detail. There may be more information that's become available. You can see we've got a curtain walling system, but we haven't been specific about whether it's a stick curtain walling system or a unitized curtain walling system. Maybe we have both. If we have both, I can add both of those to the project, and they will now appear in here as a stick and unitized. Responsibility of the architect, it's LOD 4, LOI 4, and again, as I said, we can edit those again. If I say I want less detail for that particular system at this time, maybe this is going to be a contractor design element, and we can go back to that. So once we're happy that we have all of the deliverables in and all of the tasks in, they've all been assigned to a responsible party. We can now generate our digital plan of work. We do that using the export button at the top here. So I'm going to click on export. And I got two options under the exporting the entire project, which is the top option. One is to export a DPRW file. This will export a file, a JSON file with a .dpRW extension, which can then be used as a template for future projects. Or I can export an Excel spreadsheet, which is what I'm going to do. Click on Export an Excel spreadsheet, click on the Export button. It'll take a couple of minutes just to export the information to Excel. It will ask you to open it. So this is the digital plan of work file, Excel file exported out of the NBS Toolkit. It has a number of tabs. You'll see these across the bottom. The first tab is the project details that we entered. So the reference, the title, postcode, its location, the other general information that we added about the project when we set it up. The participants are on the second tab. You can see the companies or organizations that we added to the project. They don't have any users against them at the moment because we didn't add emails and invite these to participate in the project yet, but that will get added as we develop this digital plan of work. We have the stage details. You can see stage 3 and stage 4 where we added details in for those two stages. The roles, where they were decided and where they weren't decided, we can see by stage. All the stages are included here in this roles list. I can filter this list by selecting that little drop down, go to say stage 4, and I can see the roles and the participants for stage 4 of the project, and I can see that a number of those have been decided. So there isn't one yet for the lift engineer, there is one for the highways consultant, there is one for the civil and structural engineer, there is a client. So the other roles need to be assigned or removed if they're not relevant to this particular stage of the project. Similarly, in the tasks can be filtered by stage. So these are all the tasks for all the stages of the project. So this is a long list of tasks. You can scroll down through them. But we can also filter these. So if I'm only at this stage interested in the tasks for stage 4, I can filter this down to the tasks for stage 4. So this then shows me all the tasks for all disciplines or all responsible organizations for this stage. So I can filter them by organization or filter them by role. I'm going to filter them by organization. So I'll select the structural engineer, and I can see the tasks that are assigned to the structural engineer for this stage of the project. The task name is listed: prepare a civil engineering technical design, undertake third-party consultations, assist the lead designer with the preparation of the stage design program. So there's a list there of about 10 things that the civil engineer and structural engineer are responsible for. You can see the responsible organization. You can see the PLQs. And you can also see the EIRs, so the employer's information requirements. There's a requirement for a civil engineering technical design. There's a requirement for a third-party consultation report. There's a requirement for a stage design program. There's a requirement for a cost information report. So all of these tasks relate to employer's information requirements, which are defined by the plain language questions. So each party can come in here, they can have a look at what they're actually been assigned in terms of tasks for the project, and we can check if these have been completed out before moving on to the next stage of the project. The deliverables are similar. This is a full list of deliverables for all the stages for which we define them. We've only defined them for stage 3 and 4, so I'll just filter it down to stage 4. So these are now all the deliverables. You can see all the deliverables here with their uniclass codes. Who's responsible for it? Is there an organization responsible? No. What level of detail do we want? What level of information do we want about that object at this stage of the project? If we want to see again only the elements that are the responsibility of the structural engineer, we can filter those down again. We can see the actual items that should be included in the model or included in the information by the structural engineer. So there should be earthwork systems, structural deck systems, concrete wall systems, framing systems, piling systems. Those are the uniclass codes, and those should be included in the model. We can see the level of detail and the level of information required for each one of those deliverables. And we can do that for any organization. And we can also switch that round to just the architects. So again, there's a longer list of things here for the architect that the architect is responsible for at this stage of the project. But again, there's a clear definition. This is what is in the architect's scope of works for this stage of the project. For each of those elements, we have an LOD and an LOI, and we can then check that that information and that detail is in the model. There are two further tabs, one for task comments and one for deliverable comments. We didn't add any at this stage, but if you add comments against the tasks or add comments against the deliverables in the NBS Toolkit, they'll appear on these sheets. Okay, so that's the digital plan of work file. It's a really useful tool for managing the BIM project. Whether you do this by creating your own Excel file, whether you do this by using the NBS Toolkit, or you just write it out on a piece of paper, don't ignore this. Creating a digital plan of work, creating a responsibility matrix, creating the tasks for the project is hugely important to the success of any BIM project. I'll just close this Excel file. I'm not going to save the changes to it. Just go back to my digital plan of work file in the NBS Toolkit. The other export options we have are to export for a particular stage of the project only. And the important one here, I suppose, is to export a COBie spreadsheet. There are a number of different formats that you can export this in. You can export it in a JSON file or an XML file or an IFC file. I'm going to export it to a COBie spreadsheet file. So this will export just this stage to COBie. So this is defining what we're saying we want in terms of COBie. Ultimately, COBie will be delivered through the model. And then we can do a comparison between the design intent COBie and the delivered COBie to see that we've actually been delivered what we said we wanted. So COBie is a data structure for manageable assets for the building. It has a particular data structure, and this Excel file, if anyone's been familiar with COBie, they'll have seen this format of an Excel file before with its standard sets of colors. Again, each of the tabs have certain amounts of information. So we have information on the contacts, information on the facility that we put in. We haven't got floors coming from this file or spaces because we've no spaces in the NBS Toolkit, but we do have types. So all of the types of things we put in there and all the components that we have in there exported to this Excel spreadsheet. So we can then check at the end of the project when we get delivered the COBie spreadsheets out of the model as the as-built, and we can compare against the design intent and see if we received what we were looking for. So this is the stage 4 COBie Excel spreadsheet exported from the NBS Toolkit. If anyone's familiar with the layout of a COBie spreadsheet, you'll recognize the arrangement of the tabs, which are the same for every Excel COBie spreadsheet. You'll recognize the colors, which are the same for every Excel spreadsheet. The colors do mean something, whether text is required or text is, if specified, it's required, etc. So that information is standard for all COBie files. COBie relates to information about manageable assets. It's a way of transferring information from the model to a facilities management system so that those assets can be managed in a digital database through the life cycle of the building. So in here we have some contact information that we entered in. We have some information on the facility, information that we put in, which is populated in here. There are no floors or spaces or zones in this file because we don't have those in the NBS Toolkit. Those will come from the model when they're finished, when the Excel spreadsheet is exported from the model. But we do have types. So this is our intent in terms of types and components in the model. So this is what we're saying we should be getting in terms of COBie. It may not be fully complete at this stage, but this is what we're looking for. This is the list that we're looking for. So we can check this against the COBie spreadsheet that is delivered to us out of the model at the end of the project, so that we can see whether the COBie spreadsheet that's been delivered by the contractor or by the team at the end of the project is actually correct. Does it have the right information in there? Does it have the right list of things that we need asset information about? So it's important to have a defined COBie and then a delivered COBie, and you can then do a cross-check between those to see that you actually got what you asked for. Okay, I'll just close out of this file. So the NBS Toolkit is a simple tool to use. Whether you use the NBS Toolkit or just use Excel or whatever particular application you want to use in order to manage your deliverables and tasks for the project, it is an absolute critical part of any project that you do define the responsibilities and you have some form of responsibility matrix from the project. The NBS Toolkit is a free and very useful tool to be used on your projects. I'm going to leave it at that and sign off on this section of the workshop, and we'll move on to the design review, Autodesk's design review application. This is a desktop application from Autodesk. The link to the download files was shared with you, so you should have downloaded and installed this on your laptop or your PC. And the files we're going to use are the files that I shared with you as well. The first thing we're going to do is look at how we deal with 2D drawings in Design Review. And I'm going to bring in some of the 2D files that we had shared with you. And they're in the datasets folder under export links. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring in one of these files. I'll bring in the JPEG file to start with. They are different versions of the same floor plan, just in different formats. Okay. So the first thing I've done is brought in a JPEG view. If I look at the thumbnails view here, we have the floor plan. If I go back to that folder, I can bring in a PDF. And I'm also going to bring in a DWFX. I do have a DWG file here as well, but this requires you to have the Drawing Through View application installed. So I'm not going to use the DWG file, but the principles are the same. So I've clicked on the JPEG file that we brought in the thumbnails view. And I can zoom in and out of this using the wheel on the mouse, okay, which will bring me in and out depending on where I am in the model. The navigation buttons are contained in the navigation bar just above, and you'll see there's a 1 of 3, so I can scroll through the pages. There is a home button, which will take me to a home view, the view that we opened with. There's zoom controls, which will allow me to zoom in and out rather than using the wheel. There's a fit window. There's a zoom rectangle, which allows me to draw a rectangle and zoom to that area. There are some orbit tools which are only available to me in 3D, so we will look at those when we open a 3D model. Okay. So in a JPEG view, the file will not come into scale. Okay, so one of the first exercises you're going to have to do with a JPEG is to scale the file so that you can start taking measurements from the file. Under my markup and measure tools up here, so I'm clicking on the markup and measure tab. Over towards the right hand side, we have our measure tools. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my 2D units and scale. I'm going to change the precision of my display here to 4 digits. and say OK. I'll then zoom in on one of the dimensions in the model. And on my measure tools, I'm going to click on the length measure. Pick a point on the screen, stretch that across. Now, if I use the Shift control, it will snap to a number of different angles, but it'll snap to a horizontal angle. I'm going to stretch that dimension across, and we'll see that it's 263853. It should be 2642. So what I have to do is tell Designer View that 26.3853 equals 2642. Again, I do that on the Measure tab, 2D Units and Scale. And down the bottom here, it says my scale is 1:1. So what I'm going to do is change that 1:1 to a custom scale. On the page, I'll just move that over to one side. On the page, it says 26.3853. And the actual dimension is 2642. So then I changed my dimension to 2642 to match the dimension on the screen. Now you're doing this visually, so it's never going to be 100% accurate. You just need to get it as close as we can so that we'll get reasonable measurements out of it. I'm going to go back into my 2D units and scale, and I'm going to change my precision back to 0 decimal places, because that's fine for what I'm doing. Okay. So having set the scale, we can check if I zoom in on one of these doors, check the length or the width of the doors. Again, I'll use the Shift key, and I can see it's, at there it's about 900, 912, 915, something like that for that door. So the measurements are coming up correctly. The same is true of PDFs. Now, sometimes if a PDF has been plotted to scale from the originating application, whether it's AutoCAD or Navisworks or Revit, whatever people are using, it will come into scale, and you can pick on things. If it's a scanned raster PDF, then you will have to do the same process of scaling the PDF. Just an example, if I measure the length between the grid lines here, I can see that that's not the grid line dimension. So I would have to scale this PDF as well. So PDFs and JPEGs can be brought in here and can be managed and can be marked up and measured. But in an ideal world, we'll use DWFX files. These are the native files that Designer View uses. Most of the model originating and drawing originating tools like AutoCAD and Revit will produce a DWFX file, both in 3D and in 2D. The DWFX file will come into scale. Again, if I set my measure decimal just down to 0, just check that that's been retained. If I do a length measure now across here, it is measuring, the correct dimensions. That's not a dimension. So it is correctly to scale. Again, if I go down and measure that same door that we measured before with the length command, pick there, Shift, pick there, we'll see it's actually 915. So although we were getting close with the JPEGs, it's not exactly precise. So using a DWFX gives you a lot of advantages. So we can also measure areas. So using the measure tools, again, if I click the area tool up here next to the ruler, I can then trace the room and hit the escape button when I've finished selecting the corners. You can obviously zoom in to get more accurate selections. You can carry on selecting other areas on the model. So as an area measure tool, it's quite accurate. It gives you the numbers in millimeters, but that's fine. Well, those are the measure tools. We also have our markup tools. And for the markup tools, we have a number of callouts that we can use. There's a rectangular callout with a rectangular cloud. I can draw a cloud, put some text, put the text in there, so change this. And the color of the markup is controllable. So this is now set to green in 2.5 mil or 2.5 point line. What I want to do is change that now. So I'm still in my markup tools. I'm going to change that to a red markup, change the line weight to red, the line color to red, the line weight to 1 point, change the line to a continuous line, do another markup, and we now have our markups in red. Add your comments to the model. There's a number of different sort of callouts. There's a sort of a polycloud one. This was where you have to actually draw the cloud, and it can be any shape you want it to be. Once you close it, it closes and gives you the box. There's just a line if you want to pick to a particular point in things without a cloud. Yeah. Add some comments. So the different clouds are just for different options. We also have some draw commands. So if you want to communicate something where there's a change to happen in the model, for example, you want to add another room in here, I could use these draw commands, just quickly to draw. Using the shift button again keeps it orthogonal. If I want to maybe indicate a door, just show a door in there. I could put some text in there, saying, I don't know, WC. Oops. Get rid of that. Text. WC. And then you can add a note or a comment to that. Put another cloud around that. Yeah. WC. WC. And this can then be shared and communicated with other members of the team. One of the advantages of using Designer View and DWFX files is that this can be saved and then imported back into Revit, and the markups will then be overlaid on these views or sheet views in the Revit file. Now, one of the tools we have here, which is very useful, is to compare sheets. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new file. So I'm going to go to the application button and click new. I don't want to save changes, so I'll say no, and it just opens a blank file for me again. What I'm going to do now is from my my folders again. I'm just going to pick from the dataset files, the compare folder. I have two files in here. And what I'm going to do is, well, I'll just drag them one at a time. I'm going to drag these in here. One of them is a revision 1 of the same floor plan. One of them is a revision 2 of the same floor plan. So we have two floor plans. They're essentially the same, but you need to spot the differences between them. And often this will happen on projects where you receive a new version of a file and you're having to look through the file to find out where the changes are. Some cases they may be clouded, some cases they may not. Some things will escape. It's quite difficult, particularly on bigger projects where there's a lot of people involved, to actually manage and keep control over the revisions on drawings. So if I delete one of these out of here, I have one file here. I'm going to go to compare sheets on the tools tab, and then I can browse to my compare model, and I'm going to take the P01. So this model I've left here is P02. So I'm going to compare it with P01 revision. Just going to open that file, say OK. What it will do is do a comparison between the two. And then you'll see down here at the bottom right, I'll just zoom in there, it's highlighted where the changes are between those two versions of that drawing. So I can see that the wall is moved, the instruction room has got smaller, the conference room has got bigger. There's a door added to create a lobby to the stairs. Now that might not be that easy to spot in other ways. So this is a really useful way of comparing drawings and keep it quite easy to use. You just need two DWFX versions of the same sheet to compare. So I'm going to go File New again because I want to go now and look at 3D models in Design Review. So I'm going to open a new file. One of the files that I shared with you, I'm going to open the first P01 architectural model. It's in the DWFX model folder. Open. It might take a second or two to open. What it does is it brings in a 3D model. If I look at the thumbnails view, I'll see it's brought in 5 different views. So there's 2 3D views. There's the 2D plan sheet. There's the section sheet. And there's the overall 3D model of the building. Okay. So we do have markup and measure tools in the 3D model. We do have measure tools for the 3D model. But the preference in terms of marking up is to mark up snapshots of the model. So in 3D views, you have a couple of extra navigation tools. You've got the orbit tool and the turntable tool. But most of the tools you need are available on the mouse. So we can zoom in, zoom out by just scrolling the wheel. We can pan from left to right by picking the wheel and moving the model from side to side. Okay. I'm just going to go back to the select button rather than any of the other navigation tool buttons. If I click on the model tab here, you'll see the structure of the model. So we have ceilings, curtain walls, furniture, parking. So this is the structure of the model that has come from the originating modeling software. We can turn things on and off in the model. So if, for example, I don't want to see the topography, I can select the topography here and hide it. If I don't want to see the planting, select it here and hide it. If I don't want to see the parking, I can select it here and hide it. If I do want to see things, say I want to see all of the doors in the project. From here, I can go and select the doors, which will highlight. You'll see the doors have highlighted in the model. And instead of hiding, I can say hide others. So I can hide others, and I can see all of the doors within the project. I want to see all the floors. I can do hide other. I probably need to unhide all first. Show all, and then hide other. We'll see all the floors that are in the model. So you can control the display of elements within the model through the selection tree. If I just unhide show all objects, so right-clicking on the screen and clicking show all objects will get me back to the start. I can also hide things by selecting individual objects in the view, right-clicking on them and going hide. So I can hide the roof. Hide the roof. We've still got ceilings there. On the model, if I want to get them back, again, just right-click in the view and say show all objects. Okay. So you can control display and how things look on the screen. What I'm going to do is I am going to hide the topography. So I'm going to select all the topography again and hide that. I'm going to select the planting and hide that. And now we're going to look at the sectioning tools. So we can section this model in a number of different ways. On the Tools tab, we have our 3D tools, and these include our section tools. So I'm going to go for section, the middle one there, section XZ, which is effectively a horizontal plane through the building. The tripod that appears allows you to drag the section plane, up or down through the model to different heights. Once you create a section plane in the model, on my cross sections palette, which is minimized over here on the right, if I expand it out and pin, you'll see that my cross sections appear here. So I only have one cross section. If I was to create another cross section, say a vertical cross section through the building, it creates a second plane. The second cross section appears in my cross sections window. I can control the appearance of those cross sections by using the little light bulbs beside the cross sections to turn them either off or on. And I can have any combination of cross sections turned on or turned off. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of those cross sections. I don't actually want those anymore. I'm going to delete those out of the model by right-clicking on them to delete them. Okay, so with those cross sections deleted, I'm just going to reset my screen layout to the default starting view. I do that on the Home tab under the Workspace palette. I pick on Default. What that will do is it'll reset the palettes that are open. So it minimizes all of these palettes back down to tabs on the right hand side of the screen. It leaves open the default tabs, the thumbnails, list view markups model, and the markup properties dialog box. This is quite useful because you can actually save your own workspace. So you can rearrange the palettes on the screen in the way that you like them for the way that you're working. And then you can save that workspace. And then each time you go back into it, you can load your own workspace. So you have your palettes in the arrangement that you like to have them. The individual palettes can be turned on and off from the Show Hide Palettes option. So you have all of the different palettes that are available to you. They're all on at the moment, but they're all minimized over here on the right-hand side of the screen. Okay. Now in the 3D view, we also have our markup and measure options, but the markup and measure options in 3D are limited to a rectangular callout with an arrow. So just to point to an object, do a call up and some text. And that text is then added to the 3D model. Okay. If I change the view of the 3D model, here, if I pan the model around or if I orbit the model around, you'll see that that markup stays. We can also do measurements in the 3D view. Measure the lengths. So obviously pick some funny points, but you'll see that when I placed that dimension, I placed it under the ground. So that's not a lot of use to me. If I rotate this model around, if I rotate it upside down, I'll see that dimension under the ground, but I don't see the one that I put above the ground because it gets lost. So marking up the 3D model, I find, can get very confusing, particularly if you start marking up section views and then you unsection it and suddenly your markups are lost. And the 3D view can get extremely busy with lots of different markups that you can get lost in. So if I delete those markups from that 3D view, the alternative to marking up the 3D view is to take a snapshot of the screen and to mark up the snapshot. So on the Tools menu, we have an option to take a snapshot. When I click on Take Snapshot, it opens this rectangle. I can stretch the rectangle to the size that I want it. So I want to just enclose that gable wall. Once I'm happy that's the right size, I pick the camera down the bottom left here. That takes a snapshot. It adds that view to my thumbnail view. So this becomes another sheet within the model. You'll see up here at the top right where it lists my sheets. I now have 6 of 6 sheets within this model. And I now have access to my full set of markup tools in this view. So I can do my rectangular cloud callouts, door. I can do different types of callouts. Oops, pick the right one. Just put a number in it. So you can use all of these 2D markup tools in the 2D view, and that is saved then with that view in the model as opposed to in the model. So as opposed to in the 3D model, it's saved in a 2D view snapshot of the model that can then be shared with other people. Let's go back to my 3D view. Now, actually, one of the things that's quite useful about the snapshot tool is it doesn't only take snapshots from within this application. Once that window is open, if you minimize this application, or if we jump to a different application, so now in my PDF viewer, I also have the snapshot window open. So I can take a snapshot here of this PDF of desk. You'll see it's added a thumbnail to my design review file. And again, I have my markup and measure tools available to me to mark up, you know, this file with comments. So you're keeping all your markups, all your views. This could be a photograph of the site that you want to mark up. You want to connect it into a particular set of documents, add your photographs, add your snapshots, product literature, regulations, whatever it is, you can take snapshots and they become part of the file. Okay. So all very useful things. The last tab in Design Review is Resources, which allows you to link out, first of all, to discussions. There's sort of blog posts and things that you can access. And there's links to A360, the A360 Viewer, BIM 360 Docs. Now, BIM 360 Docs is a subscription service. It's being used on quite a lot of projects, but obviously it has to be paid for, and that tends to be the stumbling block for lots of projects. But A360 and the A360 Viewers are both free applications from Autodesk. I'm going to look at both of those next. We'll leave Design Review, the desktop application there. First of these I'm going to show you is A360. Again, it's a free application. So a360.autodesk.com to get to the sign-in page. First thing you will do is go Try Now up here at the top. It'll ask you to enter an email address in order to create a login. And submit. So it tells me that I'm already part of a team, so I already have a login. You'll be doing this for the first time if you haven't done this already, so it will ask you to create your account. So I'm going to sign in with my email address using my Autodesk account. And this just takes me to the home page of this team. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a project. I'm going to call it training. I can choose a graphic for it. I can upload one of my own pictures if I want to. I'm just going to create that project in here. And it takes me into this project and tells me I haven't uploaded any data yet. So the next thing I'm going to do is upload a file, which is the merged model. I'm going to say OK to that, and you can see this file is now uploading. It may take a few minutes to upload, but there it is, it's appeared. It tells me it's version 1, so the system controls the versions of the program. It gives me the opportunity to download it, or some other options with this drop-down menu to upload a new version, to open it in the desktop, to copy, move, delete, rename, share, or create a milestone for that. So I'll just click on the file to go into it. It may take a few minutes just to generate the file for viewing. First time you do this, it can take a little bit longer because it's processing the data from the file. So there we have our 3D view. So I can click on the 3D view here. It tells me it's preparing it. It's found a number of viewables, and it opens the model for me and shows me a little cube up here, which shows me there is a number of different views or enough different models available to me in this option. By clicking on those, if I click on the structural model, it'll highlight the structural model and grey out everything else. If I pick on the mechanical model, it'll highlight the mechanical model and grey out everything else, and similarly with the architectural model. So if I right click on the screen, I'll just right click in the middle of the screen. It's I can go show all objects. It'll revert back to where we were before. So similar to in design review, we can again, isolate out individual items on this selection tree. If I just want to see the metal deck roof, the floor. Now it's graying out everything else in the model, and sometimes that can be difficult to see. There is a setting here to ghost hidden objects or to hide hidden objects. So under the configuration settings, and I got in there by picking on the little settings icon down here at the bottom of the screen. Under display, I can ghost hidden items or turn them off. If I turn them off, then it actually isolates the object. If I ghost them, I will see sort of grayed out everything else, which sometimes can be difficult. So anything in the model that you want to see, can be isolated, particular columns, or even an individual single column within the building, or any object in the model. So you can control the visibility. You can search for it in the model. If I search for windows, it will show me the windows. If I was to search for door, it'll show me all the doors in the project. So I can control the visibility on and off. Then I can select on individual objects within the model, and I can look at their properties. So the properties that are coming through from the original model are all here. Okay, so its label, its level, its sill height, the mark of that door is 123, its head height. That information that's coming through from the model is all available here. So you'll see it's different for each one of the objects that I select. Turn show all objects again. So our main menu is down the bottom of the screen in A360. So the first option there is orbit. So you'll see that the cursor has this sort of orbit icon against it, which means that if I use the pick button and just move left or right or up or down, then we're orbiting around the model. Okay. The next command is the pan command. When I do that, my cursor changes to a hand, and then I can pan the model from side to side or up and down. The next option is the walk tool. So when I click walk, I can then double click on the model to control where I am and go to any particular point in the model. So by double clicking, it will take me to that point in the model, and then I can pan around, I can orbit around from that point to see more detail. Okay. So once I'm there, if I go into the orbit command, I can orbit around in the model. I can look up, I can look down from that particular point to see more detail. We also have a first person option, which allows you to use the keyboard keys, either the arrow keys or the WASD keys, to navigate around the model. The Q and E keys allow you to go up and down, and the other commands are explained there. Look around is just the pick button. You can adjust the speed with the plus and minus, and you can teleport by double clicking to move from one place to another. I'm just going to say, OK, got it to that. So I'm now in third person mode, and I'm going to use the arrow keys. I'm going to use the left key to just rotate around left. I'm going to use the forward key or the W key to sort of walk through the model. And when you walk upstairs, for example, it will actually, walk up the stairs. There's an issue with the handrails as I was walking up the stairs. So as you're walking around the model, it is quite easy to navigate. You can see there's two different stairs there. One's in the architectural model, one's in the structural model. They're not actually coordinated. Any particular point that you are in the model, I can use the pick button on the mouse and just move the mouse up or down, to look around from my particular point in the building without moving myself. We also have a zoom window, which will allow me to, select an area of the model to zoom to that particular point in the model. There's also a zoom command itself, which changes your cursor to a zoom in, zoom out command. So those are the navigation tools. The next part of the menu is the markup tools. So again, we have a full set of sort of markup tools that we can use. We have line tools, area selection tools, and callouts. And again, in the callouts, there are different types of callouts. Just a line with some text. There's a rectangular selection and a text. A circular selection and text. There's a cloud with text, custom cloud, and polygon selection. So if I just use the standard sort of cloud selection, it will allow me to draw a cloud, place a text box, type some text in it. Add a note. And for any of these markups, I need to save that. And that becomes a point in the model with a marker against that point. Yeah. I continue to look around the model, add some more markups to the model. So if I maybe draw a rectangle or just draw a shape around that, I can add an arrow to it. Sorry, I didn't pick my arrow. I need to pick an arrow to it. Okay. Anything that you put in there, you can select it and delete. I can add some text. Now all of this I can do with a box. Call out with a cloud, but you do have the option there to do these things separately. So the color of the markup, the color of the lines that you're using, the color of the text, you have control over those as well. So anything that you select then in the model, I can cut that, I can copy it, I can undo what I've done already, or I can delete it from the menu. But once I'm happy with it, again, click Save. So this becomes another marker point with a comment within the model. And we can continue to do this throughout the model. And then we can look at those comments in our comments window. So we have a comments window here. You'll see that that's comment number 1, that's comment number 2. If I select on one, it takes me to that viewpoint in the model, shows me the markup. At this point, I could reply to this, and I could say, done. If it's been done, I can post that. So that reply is now posted. I can also delete this in here as well. You can add new comments without taking snapshots of the model or without doing markups. When you do add a comment, it will take an image of where you are in the model, but it doesn't add a markup. It allows you to add a comment, review review this, and then I can post that. And that becomes my third comment in my third markup in the model. So it doesn't have a markup, but it has a comment against it, and it shows you where in the model it is, and you can jump to that. So we can jump back to the first markup or the second markup, we can jump back to the first one, or jump back to that view. We can jump to the comments. I'll just close that properties box. We can jump to the comments by picking on the markers which are in the model. Yeah. So if I escape out of that view, maybe just rotate around, I can see where the other comment is here. If I click on the numbers on the screen, it will jump me to those comments. Okay. The markers that are showing on the screen are normally visible, but I can choose to hide those or to leave those visible. So I'm going to go to the home view. You'll see the markers are still visible. I can hide those if I want to. And we're going to look at the sectioning tools. So I'm just going to zoom in on the model a little bit. I'm going to my sectioning tools. There's a number of different section options to add an X plane, Y plane, or a Z plane. I'm going to look at adding a Y plane, so horizontal section through the model. It gives me this arrow that I can drag down through the model to a particular level, or whichever level I'm particularly interested in. I can go down to that level. And then we can see what's happening inside the building. We still have all access to the various tools, the orbit tools, the pan tools. Okay. Can also do add a Z plane. This is a vertical section through the model. Again, gives me an arrow that I can pull through the model to a particular point. Again, we can orbit around these parts of the model to review what's going on there. And again, at this point, I can use my markup tools, do a call out. Choose the right type of call out, choose a call out, add a note, change, and save. And that becomes my next markup on the model. So it's turned the markers back on. So again, by choosing the markers, I can jump back between them, or by going to the actual comments themselves, it will take me to those views. Close out of that. Okay. It has this option as well, which can be useful sometimes, to explode the model. This gives you a slider by how much you can explode the model, which basically expands everything out into a million different bits. It can be useful sometimes just to understand what's going on. Sometimes it can complicate it, but the option is there. On the next menu, we have sort of the main utilities. We can print from here, so you can print an area. With the property windows that we looked at, so again, the properties are available there in 3D. You can move the windows around the screen to different locations, or you can close those out. We have our settings windows, where we show that we would ghost objects or hide them. There's different options there that you can look on, whether you want to display the lines, display points, display edges or not. You can go back and restore the default settings. There are navigation settings, appearance settings. You can just play around with these and see which ones you like. The settings for shadows, whether you want ground shadows or not. For the environment, whether you want sharp highlights, dark sky, different types of appearances. Generally speaking, the default settings work fine for most applications. You can view this in full screen. So if you're sharing the model with someone else, you can go to full screen. To get out of full screen, it's just hit escape. So we can also share the model. So up at the top here, we have this share button. There's a number of options in terms of share, so I can copy the link and I can send that link directly to somebody. I can email the link directly from in here, so I can send the link to and type the message here, the email address and a personal message here. So you can invite other people in different ways to collaborate on this project. You can also download the file. So there's a download button, and then the three dots give you another options to copy, move, delete, or create a milestone for this project. So to go back to the overview, you'll see the model. So if you can upload as many models as you like here, as many drawings. So these can be 2D drawings, 3D drawings that are in the project. If I upload another version of this file, this will become version 2. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to upload another model. So I'll go to upload file, and you'll see I've got two revisions, a P01 and a P02 of the architectural model. So what I'm going to do is upload the P01 architectural model. You'll see it uploading. Okay. Now once it's uploaded, I have an opportunity here to upload a new version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a new version for that file, and I'm going to pick the P02 version of that file. Select open. So it's uploading that file, but it's a new version of the file that I already have there. So what I should see is that file is updated. It now tells me it's version 2. So if I go into that file, again, it tells me now that it is version 2. If I click on version 2, I can see the two versions of the file. You can see at the moment it's generating the views. So the floor, the 3D view, the balcony view, the floor plans sections. And I can promote any version of this file. No milestones in this file. So I can view either one of those. So I can choose to view the first revision, or I can choose to view the new revision. The default would be it'll show you the latest revision of the file, but all the versions are kept of the file, and the versions will just keep increasing as you move through the project. So I can jump into any one of these views. You'll see that the views are there independently, so I can click into the 3D model view. Similar to where we were before. Or I can go back and I can look at my sheets here. You know, within that sheet, I can see what's there. I can go back to my overview. And I could jump into the floor plan. And again, as we did before, we've got the opportunities to use our markup and measure tools here. So we have measure tools I can use. 6402. I can measure areas, similar to how we did it before. So I can measure room areas. And I can use my markup tools. So again, we have our clouds, we have our callouts. So I'm going to use a cloud callout, add a cloud, add a note, change this, save that. So that again becomes a comment. So clicking on the comments window will show me the comments that are in the model. So again, this comment is associated with this view of the model. So I'll go back to training. So that's just a quick overview of the Autodesk A360 free application. So what I want to do now is look at another Autodesk solution, which is their free viewer. This is a more temporary solution. It has, by standard, a 30-day limit on files you upload. It's a bit more limited in terms of what it does, but I'll give you a quick overview of that as well. So it's viewer.autodesk.com is the website. This takes you to the Autodesk Viewer. I'm logged in at the moment, so I'm just going to log out. So this is what you'll see when you go to this page, first of all. So you've got two options up here at the time. You can sign up. If you haven't already got an Autodesk account, you can sign up. If you have got an Autodesk account, which you should have at this stage, you can sign in. So you sign in with your Autodesk account, go next, and sign in. So once you sign in, it tells me I don't have any designs uploaded yet. So again, the only thing I can do here is upload a new file. Select a file. It'll browse to the website. I will pick the architectural model. Doesn't matter which one you pick, to be honest. Just pick one of those models, and we'll upload that. You'll see it uploading. It takes a couple of minutes to upload, and then another few minutes to process it. If it's a big file and a complicated file, this can take a little bit of time, but you don't have to wait. You can carry on doing other work, and it will send you an email when your link is your file is ready. This shouldn't take too long, though. I'll just wait until it's there. So from the point at which you upload this file, it will stay live, and you can share it with other people for 30 days. After 30 days, access to this file will disappear. Okay, so we see the file that's uploaded. We have the views that we've uploaded. So there's a number of different views that we've seen before. I can jump between those views. There's the initial model view. There's the different sheets that we have, floor plan, the section sheet that we have in the model. So these views all come through. The default 3D view is also here. The tools in the this free viewer option are very similar to the tools in A360. You have your orbit command, so orbit up and down. You have a fit command, which will fit the view to the screen. You've got pan command, again, pan the model from side to side. Zoom changes your mouse to a zoom option. We can zoom in and out of the building. We again, similar to the other one, I'll go back to orbit. I'm just going to orbit round to be sort of in front of the building and zoom in a little. We've got a first person option. So the navigation keys for the first person option in the free viewer are the same as A360. So just say, OK, got it. So again, you enter into a walk mode. If it's walking too slowly, you can speed it up, a little bit. Again, it will walk on whatever surface is there, but it won't, crash into things. So using the arrow keys, I'm just using the arrow keys to navigate left and right, up and down, walk into these different spaces. Once you're in the spaces, just use the mouse, to look up, look down, look around, using the pick button on the mouse. It has got measure tools, so we can measure from different points. If you have a point to measure from, you can measure the points. It gives you the distance and the X and Y dimensions. I can measure from, say, floor to ceiling. Even if I don't, it will snap to the ceiling. So it'll snap to perpendicular, but I can measure. If I measure off at an angle, it will still give me the vertical dimension and the X dimension. But once I'm close to being vertical, it will snap and it will just give me the vertical dimension. It has a home button as well, so I'm just going to go to the home button because I want to again show you the sectioning tools. So similar to the A360, we can use different sectioning planes to section through the model. Different plane. And we also have the option for a section box. So in the section box, again, you get the same sort of arrows. You can play around with that and scale the box, move the box using the arrow keys. Yeah, so you can move the box up and down, move the box around, scale the box, around your building. So play around with those section tools. Again, it has this explode feature where you can explode your model out into all its constituent parts. And it has markup tools in 3D as well. So again, it creates a snapshot when I do this. Yeah. So rather than, oops, pick text, pick some text. Save that. So again, similar to A360, we get the markups that we can jump into. Close the markup option is down the bottom of the screen. Okay. You can print from here. So it'll ask you which printer do you want to go to. You can take a screenshot. So wherever you happen to be on the model, if I just scroll in a little bit here, I can take a screenshot. So this creates a screenshot in there, and I can download that, or I can print it as a screenshot. And then I can also share this model. So if I want to collaborate with other people on this project, I can copy that link and I can share that link with other people, so other people can also access this file online, make comments, review the comments that you've made. Okay. Similar to other tools, we have the model browser. So again, we can click on different elements with the model, grey out the other elements that we don't want. Okay. See the people, see the floors that are in the building, see the foundation pads, parking spaces. By picking on the model, it'll take you to those elements. So I'm just going to right click in the screen. Sometimes I need to click a couple of commands just to get back to there, just turn everything back on in the model. Again, properties are visible. And there are some general settings, again, similar settings to what we saw in A360. So this is a simple tool. You can share your models with other people can come and have a look at it. There's just a couple of options there. So I hope you agree that some of these tools will be useful to you as you work on BIM projects. I would suggest that the NBS Toolkit is really critical, or at least developing a responsibility matrix and a digital plan of work is absolutely critical. Using Designer View as a desktop application and asking for DWFX files for your sheets and models as they're being issued is very useful. Whether you choose to use the desktop application Designer View or whether you choose to use the online tools A360 or the Autodesk Viewer, they're both very useful solutions to use and have the advantage of being free. So I hope you found that useful. I would ask that you stay connected with ArcDocs. We're here to help you. We've been helping companies deliver BIM on projects for the last 11 years now. So keep in touch, connect up with us. The main details for ArcDocs are there on this page, and there's also details for myself, Pat Slattery. You can connect up on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and also for Ralph Montague, who presented the lecture. And again, connect up on LinkedIn, follow on Twitter,